It is Tuesday, November 12th, and we will now reconvene the public session of our board meeting. We have a special reading tonight as we start the public portion of our meeting. Director Lippold.
Director Lippold, you're on.
Alrighty, so we are going to be reading a land acknowledgement, and as I read it, it will explain itself. Acknowledgement is critical in building the necessary trust to coexist in harmony with one another. Indigenous tribes and brands have been apparent on the lands that we inhabit today in the Willamette Valley and throughout Oregon, in the Northwest for time immemorial. Here in the Willamette Valley, the ancestry of the Kalapuya reaches the furthest back in time, reminding us that this bountiful and plentiful valley has been called home by its original inhabitants long before the names of the snowy peaks in the distance were re-identified. It is important for us to understand the significance of this, as the people of this land still exist and inhabit this valley not as heirs to it or archaeological artifacts, but as mutual contributors to the modern society we live in. We would like to forward our respect to the first peoples of this land, the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon, and those whose identifies as been compromised as belonging to this land and who do not fall under the state or federal jurisdiction. We reflect on displacement, forced removal, and genocides that still took place throughout Oregon and beyond to ensure we truly honor the gravity of our past, giving a guarantee that people may live in harmony and equity on this land for prosperity. We would like to acknowledge, to carry resonance as a tool of peace and mutual respect to all that reside here, who come from afar to contribute to the energy and vibrancy of the place we call home, the sacred lands of the Willamette Valley. Please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. So will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we had an agenda modification, just in case you didn't hear the recording earlier. Having added an executive session at 5 p.m. is item 2B, to meet in accordance with ORS 192-6602D, to conduct deliberations with persons designated to carry on labor negotiations. That agenda modification was made at the call to order. We also have a second agenda modification. It will be item 10B, Voting Rights Committee. Move on to the spotlights.
All right, good evening. We're going to start our spotlights tonight with Paul Myers, the principal of Walker Middle School. Come on up, Paul. I do. Salem Dream Center. Not, you want to do a different one? Okay. All right, we can come back at the end too. All right. So our next spotlight is going to be by Paul Myers, the principal of Walker Middle School, for our Distinguished National Best Practices Showcase site.
Directors and Superintendent Perry, again, it's an honor to be with you here tonight. This time we're recognizing Kendra Liggett, the career and technical education teacher at Walker.
Come on, Kendra.
That's right, don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Walker Middle School was recognized by Paxton Patterson as a distinguished national best practices showcase site. Over the years, it has become obvious that Kendra has gone above and beyond in making her classroom a welcoming and electric place to learn. Kendra has made it her mission to get students excited about what the world has to offer after they graduate high school so they can continue pursuing their goals. Last year, Walker opened the first middle school career and technical education Paxton-Patterson lab in the state of Oregon. Kendra teaches 5 classes of CTE and is already nearing capacity early in its second year. This speaks volumes not only to the engaging curriculum, but also to Kendra's teaching abilities. With 17 different modules ranging from EMT services, forensics, to structural engineering, the students in the classroom are seeing snippets of future careers. While looking at her classroom, she sees sparks of inspiration as students take a hands-on approach to learning. Even students are noticing that when Kendra is doing something special. One of her students said, "There are some teachers where they have a really good class because they're stern with students. And then there are teachers who have a really good class because the students want to listen to the teacher." And she's that kind of teacher. Kendra is a motivating teacher and naturally builds positive rapport and relationships with students. This makes her the perfect educator to build a rigorous and robust CTE elective program at Walker. And I'm getting you. This is good. Thank you, Kendra, for all you do. We are so lucky to have you as a leader for our students and our district with this amazing program. Let's give a big round of applause for Kendra Liggett.
How about we'll go on to the next one, then we'll come back to you. All right, the next one will be presented by Eric Jesperson, the principal at McNary High School.
Good evening. I brought my stunt double with me, Mr. Gregg, our athletic director. He's also my bodyguard from time to time. Chair Hyen, board directors, and Superintendent Perry. My name is Eric Jesperson. Again, athletic director Scott Gregg is with us as well. Tonight, I want to introduce you to our boys soccer program and their coach, Miguel Camarena, and the rest of our coaching staff.
Let's have stand up. Come on up.
You want them to come on over, guys. There's going to be a lot of handshaking, so they need to get started early. In early September, the boys soccer team had the opportunity to imagine themselves in someone else's shoes, or cleats, if you will, when they were playing a game or traveling up to play a game against Westview High School in Beaverton. Unfortunately, they had an unexpected turn of events that occurred. Due to some heavy rain and flooding, their game was canceled after making that drive up to Beaverton. As they were packing up their belongings and preparing for the hour drive home, the boys had heard a cry for help and instantly sprung into action. At one point, they were competitors. The two teams joined forces while placing sandbags at the bases of the doors to prevent further flooding into the gym and locker room. Other students got crafty by gathering brooms and mops and other equipment to push out and clean any water that had swept in. Miguel Camarena, their head coach, said it best, "That was a beautiful thing to see. Everyone was helping. It speaks to the quality of the boys we have here at McNary." I was only hoping that the quote would continue to say these guys are world class, but we'll let that slide. So I want to congratulate the boys who I know many of them, we've both seen games of them play. They're very good on the soccer field, but more importantly, they're great young men, and their coaches are great mentors. So congratulations, boys soccer team.
All right, our next spotlight will be presented by our Tanya Gemmel, principal at Clear Lake Elementary School.
I'm quite a bit shorter than Eric Jesperson. Chair Hyen, board directors, and Superintendent Perry. I'm Artanya Gimmel, principal of Clear Lake Elementary School. Tonight, I am very happy to introduce to you a special student, Addison Sermon, a third grader at our school. When she was just 4 years old, Addison, who also goes by Addie, didn't feel very well. Doctors at Salem Hospital did tests for several hours before diagnosing Addie as having cancer and sent her to Dornbecker Children's Hospital in Portland right away. At Dornbecker, specialists found Addie had Wilms tumor that had burst. She underwent surgery followed by chemotherapy and radiation treatments. Doctors were impressed how brave Addie was throughout the process. As part of her recovery, Addie was given a wish by the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Some people think that Make-A-Wish Foundation only gives wishes to terminally ill children, but wishes are also given to those with life-changing illnesses. There are 3 types of wishes: a wish to be somebody, to meet somebody, or to go somewhere. Addie's wish was to be an astronaut doctor. On Addie's birthday week, the Make-A-Wish Foundation sent Addie and her family on an all-expenses-paid trip to the Kennedy Space Center and to Disney World in Florida. Addie is now a spokesmodel, and you can see her picture in some advertisements in magazines like Time and People. She appeared in a segment on KGW-TV for National Make-A-Wish Day and traveled to Los Angeles for a TV program featuring several Make-A-Wish kids. It has now been 5 years since Addie's surgery, and she is cancer-free. Addison is a strong student and enjoys being at school. She has a positive attitude about everything. Thank you, Addie, for being such an awesome representative for the Make-A-Wish Foundation and for being a great model for other kids. We are so very proud of you.
All right, Mr. Myers, is yours here? You want to save it for another time? Okay, we'll bring them back. All right, thank you.
So it's time for public comment. If you're a budget committee person who signed up, we're not going to call your name at this time. You'll get an opportunity a little bit later. So we will now hear public comment. This section of public comment is for addressing agenda items only. When you come to the podium, please state your name, city of residence, and the agenda item you are addressing for the record. Please remember each speaker has 3 minutes, and the timer will beep when your time has expired. We want to hear from you, but we ask that you please respect the time limit and speak with courtesy and consideration of the board and the audience. Okay, the first person on the list is Beatrice Harden.
Good evening, Chair Hayen, Vice Chair Liplow, Superintendent Perry, and members of the board. My name is Beatrice Harden. I live in South Salem. I'm here as the Ask ESP Clerical Director to speak on Agenda Item 6B, the proclamation of the National Education Support Professionals Day on November 13th, 2019. Education support professionals are the classified staff, full-time or part-time, who make sure students have the tools and support they need to succeed. We currently have approximately 2,319 in our school. We keep serving our students and families every day in unique ways that educate the whole child. strongly encourage American Heritage Month proclamation and the Parents in Education Month proclamation, as they also are vital to the success of our students and families. Thank you.
Thank you. And Olivia?
Hi, good evening. Anna Olivia Platz-Fangula from Salem, Oregon. Do we still give our addresses? Don't have to, okay. I'm just here to support 3 people on the Budget Committee roster of, candidates. And so I wanted to, first of all, say Levi Herrera has our institutional knowledge, and he was the first, I think, the first Latino on the board, the Budget Committee, since I was there. And then the other 2 that are Latino have some really strong experience from that are involved in things, working with kids, working for kids, and they're really good representatives. So the main idea here is that I believe both vacancies need to be filled with Latinos. I know that sounds fairly, exclusive, but the point is representation, and with 40% of our kids being Latino and all of their thousands of families, with the board itself being all white, it makes it difficult for the Budget Committee. I'm sorry, not all white, one, Sacha. So we just need a representation of people of color, and it's 14 board members and Budget Committee members together. So I'm saying that 2 more people of color, and especially Latinos who speak Spanish and have the community, heart connection, their fingers in the community, right? So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ross?
Good evening, Chair Hyen, directors, and Superintendent Perry. Ross Worsendruber, Salem, Oregon. I'd like to comment tonight on 9C, the Student Success Act needs assessment process. Recent results from SBAC and NAEP indicate decreased student achievement in Salem. As we develop our needs assessment for the student investment account, please provide board of directors and public with the evidence-based research that support the following. SBAC benchmarks are key performance indicators for student achievement. SBAC and EasyCBM are long-term student outcome goals, increasing student achievement. Measuring social emotional learning needs with a uniform walkthrough tool as a long-term implementation measure for instruction. That increases student achievement. Also, like evidence-based research, that using a progress monitoring tool for academic intervention as a long-term implementation measure for data-driven systems increases student achievement. I'd also like evidence of 100% of secondary students, school teams collaborating to establish a district-wide common formative assessments in reading, math, science, and social studies for data-driven systems increases student achievement. I'd like the board and superintendent and the community and all subgroups that are targeted by this to consider creating new outcome measurements, short-term and long-term goals that exclude standardized testing. And the suggestion I have is opening district elections up to 16-year-olds and then comparing voter turnout to voter turnout at large, and see if we can increase voter turnout. I think that's a really good community effort. I'd also like to add to my encouragement last month, the superintendent of Boston Schools put a moratorium on all the district standardized tests. And the reason was that they didn't see it was increasing student achievement. And they went on further to address Pearson, which I know some of, we're paying a lot of money from this district to Pearson. And it looks like it's going to be increased under the Student Success Act. And I would just like you to go ahead and look at that article, but know that there are 7 Pearson positions open in Salem, Oregon right now. That's the Student Success Act. That's where the money's going. We need to have it go to teachers and not to these people collecting data.
Thank you, Ross.
Thanks.
And that's it for agenda testimony. We'll move on to the Native American Heritage Month proclamation. Jesse, would you read that, please?
Yes, I will. Alrighty. So, as being Native American, I am very proud to be able to read this. I think it's, our district has taken a lot of great action to help indigenous people, Native Americans, whatever name people decide to call us now, changes every other minute, I feel like. I'm just really proud of the work that Shelby's doing and our Indian Ed education doing in our parent action committee is doing. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's involved with that. So here we go. This is the Native American Heritage Month proclamation. Whereas Salem-Keizer Public Schools recognizes that indigenous peoples were the original occupants of lands that would later become known as the Americas. And whereas, as the first Americans, Native Americans and Alaska Natives have helped shape the future of Oregon and the United States through every turn of our history. And whereas Salem-Keizer Public Schools Indian education provides services for Native American and Alaska Native students, such as tutoring, college, and scholarship information, the Indian education graduation celebration, monthly meetings for parents, and a culturally based academic summer program. And whereas nearly 1,700 students in Salem-Keizer Public Schools identify as Alaska Natives or Native American. And whereas we serve all Native students and recognize their cultural heritage. And whereas Native Americans and Alaska Natives have moving stories of tragedy, triumph, and perseverance that need to be shared with future generations. And whereas our community is better because of the diversity of our population, and whereas inclusion is a core value of our district, and the school board has a responsibility to oppose the systemic racism towards indigenous people in Oregon and the United States, which perpetuates high rates of poverty and income inequality, exacerbating disproportionate health, education, and social crises. And whereas the school board promotes closing the equity and attendance gaps for Native Americans and Alaska Natives through policies and practices that reflect the experiences of indigenous people, ensure greater access and opportunity, and honor our country's indigenous roots, history, and contributions. And whereas the school board commits to creating successful educational outcomes to our Native American, Alaska Native, and indigenous students. Now, therefore, the Salem-Keizer Public Schools Board of Directors proclaims November 2019 to be Native American Heritage Month and encourages all members of our community to join in celebrating our Native American, Alaska Native, and indigenous students. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the proclamation? Satya, is there a second? Second. Paul, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstain, none. Is, Alice, is the group here, or? Okay. Next, we're going to move on to the National Education Support Professionals Day proclamation. Paul, would you read it, please?
I would be honored to. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our republic, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas education support professionals are an integral part of the education process, and whereas education support professionals manage offices, provide custodial and maintenance services, prepare healthy meals for our students, provide health and student services, keep our schools safe, drive our buses, and support student and classrooms as instructional assistants. And whereas education support professionals provide a safe and healthy learning environment for students, and whereas more than 42,000 Salem-Keizer Public School students rely on education support professionals for registration, transportation, meals, health, and safety. And whereas our district could not operate on any given day without educational support professionals, and whereas education support professionals work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. Now therefore, the Salem-Keizer Schools Board of Directors hereby proclaims Wednesday, November 13th, 2019 as National Education Support Professionals Day, and urges that we observe the day by taking time to recognize and acknowledge the importance of education support professionals in our public schools. And I would move acceptance of this proclamation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jesse, all in favor, say aye. Oh, sorry, I forgot discussion. Any discussion? Nope, okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes. Next, we
All
have.
right, we have
Whoops.
Rita here for signing that proclamation. And then we also have Shelby here to sign the other proclamation. So maybe we could do both of those at the same time. Shelby. Thank you. And Shelby, could you just introduce yourself and introduce who's with you tonight, and then we'll sign that proclamation.
I'm Shelby Mayer. I'm Program Assistant for Indian Education in Salem-Keizer, and I'm a member of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. And I have with me the chair of our Parent Advisory Committee, this is Joanna Cole, and our student representative, which is Madison Cole.
Right. Do we have the proclamations there?
Shelby and
We do.
Madison.
Okay. All right, awesome. She's signing. I heard there was a fabulous event on Friday night from our Indian Ed PAC. Heard it turned out well. Thank you for your leadership on that too. All right, and Aaron, you want to get a quick picture? Yeah, we're going to do a quick picture there, and then we'll do Rita's. Yeah. Thank you for all that you do for our students. They're great partners with us in the district. All right, Miss Rita, do you have any other, just the two of you tonight?
The two of us.
Awesome.
Do you want to say anything?
Again, just thank you for acknowledging our dedication and our service to students, and thank you for not wanting to try to run this district without us, because you know you can't. So, thank you.
Fair enough, Rita, fair enough. Rita, thank you to all of your members. They really do amazing things for our kids every single day. So we appreciate you a lot.
And you're not wrong, so thank
Yes,
you.
yeah. And would this be a time to put in a plug for school bus drivers too, while Marty's signing? I mean,
Good.
I should every time I can.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That'll be ours, because I made a boo-boo on it. Thank you.
All right, you want to do a picture there with them as well? Yeah. All right, thank you, Aaron.
Next, we have the Parents in Education Month proclamation. Danielle, would you read it, please?
Yes. For almost 100 years, during the month of November, organizations have reflected on the important role education plays in our society. This month provides us an opportunity to celebrate and honor our parents and guardians, including grandparents, foster parents, extended family, older siblings, and other caring adults who are a significant part of a student's education and make a difference in the lives of our children. Whereas parents and guardians play a vital role in their children's education as their first teachers and continue to do so for the remainder of their children's lives. And whereas we encourage all parents and guardians to be active participants in their children's education. And whereas parents and guardians who serve as volunteers in our schools are reading buddies, classroom helpers, and a multitude of other ways, all of which benefit many children. And whereas parents and guardians have the first and foremost responsibility for the nurturing and well-being of their children. Now, therefore, the Salem-Keizer Public Schools Board of Directors proclaims November 2019 as Importance of Parents in Education Month. We encourage you to join with us in working together as supportive adults to help our children grow in knowledge and understanding and reach their full potential. Working together, we are best able to provide access, opportunity, and support for all our students and strengthen their overall well-being. We join you in helping all students graduate prepared for a successful life. And I move to accept this proclamation.
Is there a second? Sharon? Any discussion? Yes. Jesse, and then Kathy.
Kathy can go first.
Kathy?
I want to take a moment to draw special attention to this parental proclamation that we have. We know parents are absolutely the foundation for the kids we teach. And I want to particularly thank Board Chair Marty Hyan for working so hard with our Superintendent, Christy Perry, to come up with a proclamation that represents our own district and how we believe here in Salem. I'm very proud of it. It looks good, and I will be supporting it.
Okay. Am I up? Okay. I love everything this says, and I want to make very clear that I 100% support parents. I love parents. I want parents to be as involved as we can. However, I will not be supporting this only because I believe there was a work from an organization in our community that takes a stance on LGBTQ rights that was trying to push us to pass this, and I don't want us to be passing something just because they want us to. And while I believe that there's good intentions between all of our board members who want to pass this and behind this, I can't say yes to that. And so and if I'm ever questioning the intent of why we're passing something, I can't with a good conscience vote for it. And so if we did this on any other month and I felt good about the way that it was presented to us, I would 100% be in support. I just don't want that group to think that we're supporting what they're doing, and so I can't vote for this. But I 100% love parents to death, and I want you to be as involved as you can. I just can't do something to kowtow to them.
Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Yes.
You know, I think this is fundamentally a very important proclamation. Our children need three things: safety, stability, and a very nurturing experience. And you know, from the time of pregnancy up to 5 years is most critical period. If parents and teachers in school and everybody, early childhood, we all can work together in providing that continuum of safety, stability, and a nurturing experience. That's probably the best thing the brain can have. That'll be the best foundation our children can have. And if we can continue that without interruption as a seamless system throughout the school's 12-year of trajectory, we're going to have a beautiful adult citizens or members of our community and harmony. And so to me this is a very important proclamation. There's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be stress and things like that. If you can just remember those three words: safety, stability, and a nurturing experience. And if that can continue, and we all can play a role in that. Sometimes school becomes the only home for a lot of our children. But we all can kind of make sure that we step in and fill the gap. So I like to support this for that very reason. This has been the bread and butter of my 31 years career in psychiatry. I see oftentimes I end up trying to work to repair what was missing in the early years. So thank you for bringing up this proclamation.
Thank you. Any more comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Aye, nay.
It passes. So, just a little information about our parents and their importance in education. Please join us for parent-teacher conferences the last week of November. It is critical for our teachers and parents and guardians to build relationships and connect and discuss the needs of our students and your children. Also, please join us for one of our student investment account community listening sessions and provide us feedback on spending priorities to determine how we can best support students throughout the district. Listening sessions will be on November 18th at 6 p.m. at McNary for the Keizer community, and November 20th at 6 p.m. at South Salem High School for the Salem community, and there may be a few others as well. Please check the district website. Please get involved. Next, we're going to vote on Director Satya Chandagiri, sorry, Satya, for the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, position 11, Marion Region. Take a motion. Jesse?
I move that we vote to elect Satya Chandagiri to serve as the Marion Region member of the Oregon School Boards Association Legislative Policy Committee, and I'm proud to do so.
I will
Second.
second that.
Second from Kathy. All in, discussion? Any discussion? I'm wanting to forget discussion tonight. I don't know why. Jesse?
Okay. I just want to say, Satya, that I really respect you a lot. I think you have a lot of great input, and a lot of times you'll bring forward a viewpoint that none of us could bring. And I just think that you're very thoughtful in the way that you approach things, and I know that you're going to do a very good job.
All right. Any other comments? Sean?
So it's not so much a comment. I'm still trying to understand the role of the policy committee. So I know we discussed this last time, and there was some confusion, I think, between what the assumption was about the role and what the actual role is. So serving on the policy committee is to provide input to OSBA, but there's a lot of comments in here about talking with legislators, and so I'm confused about the role, because I don't know that we necessarily want one board member speaking on behalf of the entire school board to state legislators. So I'm still not clear on the actual role. I'm just trying to have that clarified before we vote.
Can anybody answer her question? I know I can't. Jesse?
Since I currently serve on the Legislative Policy Committee, the role is basically, there are meetings, I believe it's like twice a year, and then there are like calls throughout the year. But basically what it does is it helps give feedback and direction to OSBA's, their lobbyists, so that way when they're going to the Capitol to lobby for things, they know what direction it is. And since we all pay for the membership, right, then we all have a vote and a say in that.
So just to clarify, OSBA goes and does the lobbying, not our elected member?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay. Next, we'll be appointing community members to the Budget Committee. First, I wanted to thank Levy Herrera Lopez and Dewey Thorset for serving the community, our students in the district, on the Budget Committee during the last 3 years. And Levy, you might have been on there even longer. I'm not sure when you started on there. And wow, we actually had originally 15 people apply. 3 have withdrawn, so now we have 12 people who want to step up, and they're willing to serve the community over the next 3 years. Each and every one is qualified, and each one brings qualities and qualifications that would benefit the Budget Committee. As we go through this difficult selection process, I want to remind those of you who do not get appointed that there are many other opportunities to serve in the district, and I hope you will apply to participate on the Voting Rights Committee, and I will share more details on that later in the evening. Several candidates are here with us tonight, and if you would like an opportunity to speak, I'll call down the list, and if you're here, come on up. Jacqueline? So you have 2 minutes, and the board had asked 2 questions, which I don't seem to. Oh, sorry, I found them. The Salem-Keizer School District budget is large and complex. How would you go about preparing yourself in advance for budget committee meetings? And because we have 12 applicants for 2 positions, what is the one experience, accomplishment, or capability that distinguishes you and most qualifies you to serve on the Budget Committee?
Hi, my name is Jackie Bechtel. In answer to the first question, there are 3 or 4 things that come immediately to mind. The first is reviewing previous year's budgets. Since last year's budget is available online, I was able to spend some time this week skimming it to get a better idea of what the district has, where the district has been. Another would be to talk with district budget staff and with board members to understand current priorities. Finally, coming to the table with my own ideas and interests well researched in advance so that I can be prepared to contribute knowledgeably about the things I'm passionate about. As to the second question, the quality that most distinguishes me for this work is that I have learned the simple secret of dynamic and successful teamwork. Some call it emotional intelligence. Another phrase I like is relational wisdom. But whatever the term, the point is that the sort of teamwork I want to join and facilitate, the sort that supports our children's educational needs, is the sort that requires equal attention to self and others. It takes awareness of the potential obstacles I bring, and at the same time, a willingness to work through those without defensiveness or anxiety. It also takes awareness of what others are looking for, whether that's communicated verbally or non-verbally. Most recently, I have learned the skills of emotional intelligence through 8 years of leadership in and through my faith community. I've been a mother and neighbor and school mom and wife too, of course. But the work and service of organizational leadership have been especially illuminating. The catalysts for learning have sometimes been my own mistakes. They have often been poignant and painful, but they have always been valuable. As a result, I bring a wealth of relational savvy to the Budget Committee. If selected, I will contribute to skilled listening, clear communication, and strong consensus building for the school district. And in our society, those results are rare and precious, especially when it comes to the future of our children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see. Our next person is not able to attend. Shelley.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be here to tell you that for several years, I began preparing for potentially sitting on this budget committee. I've read the 2018 budget, 2019 budget. I sat right back there during budget meetings as well as during board meetings. So I don't come tonight asking for a position that you haven't seen me want to be involved in this district. In addition to that, I've looked at the role of the Budget Committee and how I can best serve this community by being a part of the committee. I served on the task force, the Boundary Review Task Force, and I think that the staff is very clear that I'm a person who's willing to speak up not just for myself, but for other underserved communities. And that also is what I bring to the table that I don't think many people will be able to say. I can go to South Salem, I can go to Keizer, I can go to over to West Salem, I can go anywhere in the school district boundaries. I will know a parent, I will know a student, I will know a member of your faculty, your staff, or someone who has a connection to the district. And because of that, I think I bring something special to the table. In addition to that, as a public administrator, I am a seasoned professional. I look at how the budget impacts the mission of this organization, which is a community organization if you look at it from the right perspective. And I know that together we can meet that vision for all students graduating and being prepared for a successful life. And I can work with the district to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here to apply for this important position on the Budget Committee. I grew up in Salem, and as a product of this school district, I'm grateful to say that I went on to graduate from Oregon State with a degree in elementary education. I was a very involved student and also an avid reader. Ultimately, while teaching turned out not to be my calling, books, the publishing industry, business, education, and public libraries are absolutely my calling. I had the great good fortune to go on to get my MBA and work for 2 large publishing companies. For the last 20 years, I've worked for Baker & Taylor, which is the largest book supplier in the country, where our mission statement is improving the world by inspiring learning and shaping education. And that couldn't be more perfect to fit my priorities. To prepare for meetings, I would read the agenda, review all previous meeting minutes. Once we have received Superintendent Perry's proposed budget, I would study that and make sure I understand it, as well as be prepared with questions for those things that aren't clear to me. There are a lot of resources available, and I'd familiarize myself with laws and policy pertaining to the school district. At the top of the list would be to understand the school board's priorities and goals for the district and review the budget with an eye toward how it supports those priorities. The committee has tremendous responsibility and accountability to taxpayers and students, and I'm a numbers person. I'm accustomed to digging deep into spreadsheets. I'm also very reliable. I learned an easy secret to success from one of my mentors, and that is just showing up. And I've lived by this, and it has served me well. I now have 3 little boys going through the Salem-Keizer schools, and I'm invested in our community. I'm on the board of our neighborhood association, and I am leading a task force in Keizer to bring a public library to our city of nearly 40,000 people. Rather than one thing that I can point to that would make me a good choice, the combination of my education, skills, knowledge, and character that I've been building throughout my life gives me confidence that I'd be a valuable voice on this committee. My entire life has been focused on literacy and education, and my personal mission corresponds well with our district's mission of all students graduate and are prepared for a successful life. I'm committed to our public schools, and I'm eager to ensure that we are making the best use of our valuable resources. I'd like to ask for your nomination to this important role. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Levy?
Good evening, everyone. First, I think I would like to answer the second question first of why I put my name in for another term. I think I felt that I've learned throughout the past few years well about the process and what the work entails of the Budget Committee, serving as the vice chair and most recently as the chair of the Budget Committee. It really helped me to learn how that role. And I think going into this next couple of years, there's some really exciting things happening at the state level in education with the Student Success Act, and I would like to be part of that effort. I also have my self-interest is I have 2 kids that will be entering schools pretty soon, so I want to have a part in making sure that a school district is doing the best for every kid. We are really the best school district in the entire state. And so having said that, I really find it exciting that there's so many people who signed up for this opportunity. So I trust that you will be making the right decision, and I think you have a good number of candidates and very highly qualified people. I would also, one of the things that I do to prepare myself for any activities, I like to go out and talk to people in the community. So when it comes to the budget, I like to talk to the families who are not able to always be here, so that I can bring their voices into the room when I ask questions, when I review the information, and really think about what the impact of the decisions that we're going to be making in these rooms is. And that's how I've operated, and that's the commitment that I make. Also, as I mentioned, my previous experience on the budget committee, I think makes it easier for me to understand some of these challenges. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
Hi, my name is Catherine Jones, and I have to just completely second it. When I saw that the budget committee position became open, I told my husband, oh, it sounds super boring, nobody's going to apply, I better, just in case. And then when I saw the applicants and I read through their applications, I was just so happy as a parent that so many people at the grassroots level are stepping up, especially because of how divisive politics has become at the national and state level. It's so nice to see that regardless of who you guys pick, you're going to pick a good one. And I think that that's, a great thing for you, that regardless of who you pick, it's going to be awesome. And I think it's just looking at your current committee and seeing if there's any gaps and holes. I guess a gap I could possibly fill is I worked with ODOT for 10 years. And I get that the Salem-Keizer school budget is very complex, and so is the state highway fund, it turns out. So that's no walk in the park either. There is tons of money, federal, state, local, that's flowing in. There's different colors. From those funds, you have to track, if there's expiration dates on those funds, if there's a match requirement on those funds, and what they're dedicated to. And that gets messy very quick, and I do have experience with asphalt and concrete of tracking that in building bridges and building roads. The second question of what would I do to prepare, for ODOT, I also went on to projects that were failing, and I know that this is an elementary response. I know this is a very simple response, but the first thing is, where's statute? Because as a bureaucrat, as you get into it, you always forget. It's just so easy to get lost in the weeds that you need to go back to statute. What does statute say? And I do know that House Bill 3427 does lay out some requirements of how those funds should be spent and when. So I think that's very important to track. So to prepare, I go through statute and see where you are with your funding requirements, and then I'll go through your budget and then see how the two line up. The one quality is, I guess, that I get complex budgets, and I get just taking public policy, and I'm an executor. I take public policy, I read it, and I get it on the ground. And so that's the one experience. And the other one, along with my fellow candidates, is I care. I really care about where my kids go to these schools, my neighbors go to these schools, and I care. So thank you.
Thank you. Abraham?
Hello, my name is Abraham Magaña Quiñones, and first I want to thank you for accepting my application and considering me for a position on the Budget Committee for the Salem-Keizer School Board. And to address the first question, how would you go about preparing yourself in advance for Budget Committee meetings? Well, I've already gone ahead and reached out to 2 previous members of the Budget Committee just to kind of get their ear and really answer questions I have about the process and the work that happens. I reached out to Levi Herrera and I also reached out to Adam Kaler, who was also formerly on the Budget Committee, and they provided me with a lot of information and were very helpful and say, is this really what I want to do? And definitely it's something I want to do. And like the other candidates mentioned before, I've also gone ahead and reviewed the budgets. And what I've realized about budgets, budgets oftentimes, I kind of liken it a lot to my time when I was as I worked with legal aid services doing outreach work, where I had to explain complex law, farm work, or labor law. Law in itself is very dry, but when you provide the context and see it in action, it comes to life. And I realize this in my regular job today as a grant manager. I manage funds, a portfolio of funds, and I see the budgets, but if I don't have the narrative and the data, the reporting, it's just money and budget line items. But it comes to life when you're able to analyze it with the other reporting, the data and policy. And for the next question in regards to, we have 15 applicants for 2 positions. What one experience, accomplishment, or capability distinguishes you or most qualifies you to serve on the Budget Committee? I think the one quality for me is really the ability to adapt. And I'll give you a couple stories through being prepared, kind of patient and persistent. So I served in the Peace Corps many years ago. I served in a rural town in Guatemala. And during that time, nobody knew who I was. I was just a foreigner who was there to help. But someone had said, we'd really like to do a cleanup of our neighborhood. It's really dirty. And me being from Oregon, I noticed it. It was very clear to me. So I called a meeting. One person showed up. I called a second meeting. The same person showed up. I called a third meeting. I got 2 more people show up. It took about 6 or 7 meetings before I actually had a small group of 3 to 4. But let me tell you, that small group of 3 to 4 told their friends. And slowly but surely, let's get the schools involved. Let's make this a service project. Let's get the judge of the peace. And we were able to organize that river cleanup project. But not only that, when the mayor heard about it, initially didn't support it because I was organizing this without the knowledge at the time. And I was inviting them to the meetings to come. But not until they saw the community support did they say, how can we help? And that for me is like, okay, you know what, working together, with the community itself, listening to them, working with local government, making things happen. In regards again to adaptability, I went from that to moving to New York City. And again, I was doing direct work with youth and foster care, and that's no easy task again, where they send you to some pretty rough neighborhoods. But again, for me, it's always about working community and serving our most vulnerable populations. That's what I've done throughout my whole career, and I want to continue to do that. Not just to focus on our students, because every time it's always about students, but I'm also curious about those kids who aren't our students, but should be our students. For whatever reason, have disengaged. And I want to look at the budget, and I have questions around that in the budget. Again, my name is Abraham Magaña, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. William?
Hello, my name is Bill O'Donnell, and let me address your first question first about preparation. I would prepare for the Budget Committee like I prepare for every meeting I go to. I'd review all the materials that are either available or provided, and not just review the information, but also do an analysis and determine what are the takeaways. What is this budget really telling me about how we're allocating our resources? And that analysis might involve doing another worksheet or putting together a chart so I can kind of visually see it. But the bottom line is I would definitely prepare for myself some bullet points of what are those takeaways from the information and what questions do I have. I mean, there's probably logical answers to all the questions I have, but sometimes it's worth asking those questions just so that everybody understands what those issues are. The second question is about what do I bring to the table? And I think the most important thing I've had to do in my job and throughout my career is to provide advice. And so I've advised 7 university presidents, countless deans and managers, athletic directors, faculty, and student organizations. And I learned early in my career that I best serve those individuals not by giving them my recommendation. I'm certainly willing to provide that, but I best serve those people by giving them their options. And not just the options, but an analysis of the options. What are the pros and cons of every option? And so I believe that the best option always rises to the surface. And so in working with whoever my boss has been, I've always taken the approach that if I do my job, my boss will never make a bad decision if I identify the options. And so for a board or an individual making a decision, I believe there's really no such thing as a bad decision, simply not knowing what the options are, not having a good option. And that's where I come in. I've been able to provide not just all the options, but sometimes some very creative options that no one thought of or people didn't realize they could do. And so I think that's where my value has been throughout my career. I've had tremendous experience in that. But the other part of advising has also been, I've had to explain complicated budget concepts. And I've had good success in explaining it in a very understandable fashion, because it's essential that everyone have a common understanding of the budget issues in order to have a collaborative and inclusive conversation. And so again, I've had a lot of experience and success with that. I'm ultimately here this evening because I recognize the great job that our faculty, administrators, and staff do in supporting the school district. I just want to help as a parent. And so if I can help, please let me know. Thank you for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. Maria? Maria? Pressy? Maria Pressy? Nope, okay. Patrick?
Good evening. Start with your first question. I have a history of studying major budgets, analyzing them, and making sure that I was prepped for meetings where we look at meetings. I'd read the entire budget as it relates to the agenda. I would look at how it's changed. I would review the programs that helping special populations. My history is as a special ed teacher. I'm a teacher of the visually impaired and orientation and mobility specialist. That's what I did for the when I worked for the Salem School District. Let's see, I would look at areas look for areas that were unclear to me. I would formulate questions regarding areas that seemed difficult to understand. I would look for programs that seemed to be underfunded. I would come to the meeting with the intent to ensure that the needs of the community would be met and that the students would get the best possible education. That's how I would prepare for a meeting. For the second question, that I hold an EDD in educational leadership, focusing on large-scale strategic planning. That I've experienced in creating and managing very large budgets. That I'm especially proud of several large grants that I've procured for at the school district level, state level, and college levels. That a grant that I'm particularly proud of is a grant that started the Older Blind Project for the Oregon State Commission for the Blind, and that was 40 years ago, and it's still going. That I would be very interested in looking at alternative funding methods, looking at different ways of bringing resources into the institution, and really making sure that this was a exemplary program, which it is right now. I'd want to make sure that the funding continued. Okay.
Thank you. Krishnan?
Good evening, school board members and members of the Salem community. I'm truly privileged to be able to present myself to you for this opportunity. I've been working as an IT architect and business process improvement for the state over 20 years. When we decided to make Salem our home, both our children were born and brought up. They went through the Salem-Keizer school. And I have my older son who has graduated, and he's pursuing a career with Salem Health and singing with the 11th Master Chorus. Our younger son is still with the school district, and he's trying to graduate as a senior. The toughest part of taking on a new assignment like this to me is exactly to figure out what your role is, what the expectations are, where you can be contributory and where you can bring your skill set and where you have to just listen and contribute to the team, the team concept. So if I sense the requirement for this role correctly, I think I would look to the board for direction and provide analysis and groundwork in setting budgetary priorities and listening in terms of preparation as well as in terms of reducing the complexity. My own job involves basically dealing with complexity, being able to document and synthesize it for consumption by a varied set of stakeholders. To me, the big triumvirate of stakeholders in this domain are parents, teachers, and children. So I've had the opportunity to actually contribute as a volunteer co-teaching assistant to one of the high schools last year. And it greatly opened my eyes into the challenges of being an educator. So from my standpoint, that's the unique set of qualifications that I bring. And it's great to see the level of interest from the community for this position. And wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. So we had 2 respond by email.
Yeah, so I'm going to read those, and then at your board plate, you also got a letter from the coalition in support of Levy Herrera as some document that they wanted submitted to you. And you also have at your board plate a message from Nancy McMorris-Audix that you should review prior to voting. And then what you have, we also have is from Jason Brandt. The answer to his first question is the Salem-Keizer about how would he go about preparing? With a total funds budget of over $1.2 billion, I would continue to rely heavily on the ample documentation and information provided online through the Salem-Keizer School District website. In addition to doing my part to review all the materials provided by staff in advance of the Budget Committee meetings, I would also proactively reach out to my counterparts serving on the Budget Committee and also SKSD professional staff for questions related to the 7 major fund categories the Budget Committee is responsible for overseeing: general fund, special revenue fund, debt service, capital projects, enterprise, internal service, and trust. My commitment to preparation would be to seek factual answers to any questions, avoid making assumptions, and complement the important work of SKSD staff and other Budget Committee members. My focus would be to adequately review the proposed budget provided by Superintendent Perry with the goal of recommending a budget for adoption to the SKSD School Board for the 2021 fiscal year. His next answer was, what's one experience, accomplishment, or capability? He says, I believe my lifelong broad-based business experience working professionally in Salem-Keizer distinguishes me as a potential candidate for service. Over the course of 11 years, I had the pleasure of serving on the professional staff at the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce, with 4 of those years of service being in the role of CEO. In addition, my current role as president and CEO at the Oregon Restaurant Lodging Association represents the second largest private sector industry in our state behind healthcare. I would make sure to put both professional experience to work for the benefit of our education system. Both experiences as a leader in our region's business community, as well as in-depth knowledge about the needs of Oregon's hospitality industry, could be helpful in aligning education resources with workforce needs. I believe these two professional roles, as well as being a graduate of the SKSD system, to be my main qualifiers for consideration. And the last one is from Malay Valoria, and she said, unfortunately, I will be unable to attend this evening's meeting. Here is my responses below to the questions. How would she go about preparing? In preparation, I would review the financial statements available to us, past and current. This way I can help understand the trends and contribute my suggestions to better focus future budget expenditures. Additionally, I would take time to meet with my peers on the committee to help understand past decisions. The answer to the second question about her one experience or accomplishment, I am confident in understanding the general functions of a budget and how it can impact an organization through my work experience with the state of Oregon and my education received from the Willamette MBA program. However, more importantly, I share the same vision as SKSD in wanting all children to graduate and be fully prepared for a life. I have 3 older children that have graduated from North Salem High School, and I have 2 more currently enrolled, 1 in high school and 1 in grade school. Allowing me to serve on the Finance Committee allows me to give back to the community with the talents that I have been gifted with. Thank you for all of your time this evening, and I look forward to serving with you, if not on the committee, as a community member.
Thank you. So before we move on to voting, we're going to take a 7-minute break. See you in 7 minutes. Okay, all board members have returned to the podium. I'm going to turn this over to our lawyer.
So the voting process will be for you to start with the goldenrod ballot. We have them color-coded tonight in case there needs to be more than one ballot. You'll put your board member name on the ballot, so you'll be signing your ballot, so please do that legibly so I can read it. And then I will report the results on the board. So please vote for 2. Please vote for 2. It's, of course, mathematically possible that no one gets 4 votes. It takes 4 votes to approve a candidate. So we might be doing this several times. It's also possible that 3 candidates could get 4 votes, in which case we would do a runoff between those 3 candidates. So there's different mathematical possibilities, which we'll deal with other colored ballots. Thank you.
Hope we have enough ballots. It's going to be hard. I know.
Just check.
Yes, I can say something. This is from Danielle and me, and I'm sure it reflects everybody on the board. There's so many great people. I have to tell you, I did change my mind during comment on one, but it wasn't easy to change my mind because I really wanted to vote for the other one. You know, and what do you do when you can only have 2? And there's so many great candidates. So thank you again for coming and putting yourself out there. There's opportunities coming real soon with a committee I'll be talking about later this evening. I hope you will consider being a part of that. Anyway, we appreciate all of you, and we feel really bad that we can't make the tent big enough for all of you to be there.
So we have all the ballots. Director Chandragiri votes for Smithville and O'Donnell. Director Goss votes for Brandt and Mr. Herrera Lopez. Director Hyen votes for Anger I've just been coached on how to say this name, so I probably am close. Hanger and Ms. Herb. Director Bethel votes for Bechtel and Herb. Director Kylo votes for Bechtel and Herb. Director Lippold votes for Aurora Lopez and Mr. Begania. And Director Blasi votes for Mr. Aurora Lopez and Ms. Jones. So you're on to the next ballot.
Light blue next.
They keep all the candidates on? Yeah.
What would the board chair like?
What did you vote at the end?
Yeah, it should.
You know, I'm going to ask the board, the whole board, this question, but I think it would make sense for those that had no votes at this time to not put them in the second round so that we're not here till midnight, unless you want to be here till midnight. What do you guys think? Paul, comments?
I don't want to be around midnight.
You don't mind? Okay. What do you guys think to remove those that did not get a vote in the first round? Okay, all right, so there is a consensus on that. We're going to remove those that did not get a vote. And again, thank you so much, and remember, there's another opportunity that you'll hear about tonight that I hope you will participate in.
Which ones did you just erase? Were they in order?
Which ones did you just erase? What's the
The bottom four went. Yeah, bottom four.
Look up there to decide who to.
And then the ones that withdrew are gone.
I'm not ready yet either, sorry.
What paper are we using?
Okay, Director Goss votes for Brandt and Mr. Herrera Lopez. Board Chair Hyen votes for Bechtel and Ms. Berg. Director Lippold votes for Mr. Lopez Herrera, or pardon me, Mr. Herrera Lopez, and Mr. Magana. Director Chandragiri votes for Bechtel and Mr. Herrera Lopez. Director Kylo votes for Bechtel and Mr. Herrera Lopez. And Director Bethel votes for Bechtel and Herb. So we have elected two.
Did you read mine?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I'd read yours. Pardon me. Director Blassie votes for Bechtel and Mr. Herrera Lopez. Did I get everyone? Thank you.
Thank you again, everybody who participated, in case you didn't hear. So Levy Herrera Lopez and Jackie Bechtel will be joining us on the Budget Committee for the next 3 years. Thank you very much, everybody. Next, we have our consent calendar. Does anybody wish to pull any items from the consent calendar? Not seeing any. Do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar? So moved. Sharon, second?
Second.
Second from Paul. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, moving over to Christie.
All right, starting in your board packet, there's a request for an amendment of my contract. I have a provision of in the board plate plus the written language that I'm requesting in my contract. And it seems like this would be most appropriate discussion led by our legal counsel and board chair so that we can answer questions and go from there. So Marty or Paul, do you want to start it?
Well, everybody's read the amendment. I'm assuming it was in your email. Are there any questions for Christie or Paul Dukopoulos? Yes, Paul Kylo.
My question is, in the language where it says section 23 in the first paragraph, it says during 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024, my understanding is the superintendent's current contract only goes through 2021. Why did we include the extra 3 years?
Well, when I helped draft this, this particular provision, this is just what the law reflects.
I understand, but why are we including 3 extra years that we may not, she may choose to not be here for? That'd be my question.
Well, it would have to be both a superintendent decision and a board decision.
Okay.
But we built in the years so that you wouldn't have to come back and re-amend the contract. The superintendent is currently in her second year of a 3-year contract. So the first year that this would really be available for a full rehire year would be her 3rd year. So the board would still have an opportunity after her evaluation this year to determine whether you wanted to extend the contract for another year. So that could implicate the 21-22 school year. But that is a separate decision of the board at a later date.
Right, but if we if the contract, but we would need to extend or negotiate a new contract during that period of time anyway. So I don't understand why we need it in these amendments.
And
We would be negotiating another contract.
yeah, I think what you're saying is it should go to the end of this current contract and then readdressed with the new contract.
Correct.
Well, my idea in this was to simplify the process. So, for example, we don't have a brand-new contract. When we don't draft a brand-new contract, typically what the board does is it extends the term of the existing contract. So with this language, it would give you the ability as a board to be able to extend it, not just for the 3rd year of the contract, but let's say if you decided this year that you wanted to extend it 3 more years, the superintendent would be currently in her 1st year of a new 3-year contract, so that next year you'd be having the same conversation, but you'd be talking about the 22 school year.
I understand.
So that's why I included it.
I understand that, but as I read section 23, paragraph C, the last sentence implies that we would be rehiring her until 2024. without negotiating a new contract in between.
Oh, I don't think that's at all the case, because
But that is what it says, Paul.
you'll have to point that out to me. It just
So
says,
this provision will become null and void on December 31st, 2024, or at the expiration of this contract, okay.
so
But it's still, the implication is still there in my mind that we're saying we're going to go through 2024 with this, when we would negotiate a new contract in between. And I don't know why the changes wouldn't be negotiated into the new contract, unless the superintendent's saying she doesn't expect a salary increase, she doesn't expect any other changes in her contract, then then you're saying her contract stays static. And that's not what I would understand or expect.
well, she has a contract right now that does expire on
Correct.
June 30, 2021. So if the
Correct.
board did nothing except add this provision to the contract, then she could finish this year. You'd rehire her for essentially the third year of her contract, and she'd be done on June 30, 2021. So there wouldn't be any more negotiation. It's only if the board decides to extend the contract that this year for an additional year, essentially adding 1 year to what is essentially a 2-year contract.
Or we could choose to rehire her, as we have with other superintendents who've been interim superintendents who filled in, who've also been PERS retirees, so that is also a possibility. So this isn't the only possibility for what we have to do.
Well, we can get as creative as the board wants to get on this question. I tried to make this the simplest for the board, because the board is still in control of the ultimate question. Do you want to extend a contract past June 30, 2020?
I guess.
Danielle, you have a question?
When we read through this, and I had questions for you before, I think what I'm confused about now is why we never talked about 2023 or 2024. We only talked about the contract extension that she has in place. And we're asking to amend that contract to allow her to continue to do the great work she's been doing for the district with this new rule that the legislature's pushed down. So I guess I don't understand where the addition of these years came from at all. And I don't know why we'd be talking about past the contract she currently has, because we just want to amend the current contract is what my understanding was.
Yeah, I'm confused too. So if we extend her contract for a year or 2 years or whatever, wouldn't all the same conditions apply? And basically, you're just changing dates for that time frame. So wouldn't the, her ability to work full-time under these conditions, wouldn't that remain the same?
I mean, it won't change the result at all if you take out 23 and 24, and you say that in next year, which would be the third year of her contract, if she is currently in this rehire status, and she comes to you and says, I would like the board to extend my contract 2 more years, we'd have the same board plate. We'd be asking the board to add 23, and we would, you could pass that if you wanted to pass that, and then we would take similar action if she still wanted to continue to work and you still wanted to continue for her to work. We could take another action and add 2024. It won't change the result at all in my mind, but it's up to the board.
I know it doesn't change the result, but I wonder if it clarifies things, if there's confusion about it. Do you guys have any questions down there? Sharon?
So I have 2 questions that are different than that. So the first question is, I thought there was some correspondence around the ability of other executive team members falling under this as well. Are we voting on any of that, or this is just specific?
This is only
just specific to yours.
The larger context is Senate Bill 1049 gives this rehire opportunity to every single school district employee. So we've been working on a universal policy to cover a lot of different categories of employees. And this gets more and more complex because we have essentially 10 categories of employees, and the superintendent is a unique category, and that's for the board's decision. So the superintendent can't approve her own contract. It's the board's decision. So in writing the policy, that I made sure that it was the school board's decision to vote whether to rehire the superintendent or not. And you get to make that decision each year, essentially, as you extend the contract.
Right.
So that's what's unique about superintendents. But in the larger context, for all licensed teachers, all licensed administrators, teachers both probationary and contract, for the classified administrators, this is the same concept, but they have different contract periods. A superintendent has a 3-year contract. Building administrators licensed have 3-year contracts by statute. Teachers have 2-year contracts by statute. Classified administrators are essentially on a year-to-year contract. And so we're trying to harmonize this so it's applied equally to all. The unique feature about what you're seeing tonight is your superintendent has a contract that only you can change. And so we're trying to incorporate these same ideas in what is essentially her second year and her 3rd year of a contract that you get to decide if you want to renew or extend each year.
So, thank you. I just was trying to clarify the other executives that were mentioned in the correspondence.
So in the board plate, let me just clarify
Right.
that for you. Legally, you are required, if there is, to approve contracts for the assistant superintendents, because they have superintendent in the title. So we would want every contract to align with this, and if we put those in those contracts, it would come before you. The executive director of human resources and the chief operations officer, you don't legally have to approve their contracts, but you always have. So we would bring those forward so that all employees within the organization are treated similar. We haven't done that yet, but that would be the intent with those. Every other employee in the district is under our internal policy, HUMP 019, that does not come to you for approval. Does that help?
It does, thank you.
And go ahead. I was gonna go back to the years.
And I have another question. This gets a little more technical. So basically what this contract amendment is saying, that we are agreeing, if you decide to retire during this contract, during a 3-year contract, or if we extend or renew, if you retire, this automatically guarantees you the ability to come back as a full-time employee under the law. So we would be compensating for your full contract as a contractor coming back. So you would come back as a contractor under full benefits currently stated in your contract, but we would also be making the payments into PERS, into the PERS account.
Yeah, go ahead. You want to finish?
And I think the question then is, if we are agreeing to this, what is the cost?
And the PERS account, of course, is not her PERS account. It goes into the general PERS account, is my understanding.
Reduces
Right. But
debt.
Oh, so what I wanted to add then, because I thought about that earlier, and if she were to not do that, let's say she were to retire and not come back, and you're not allowed to do that, whoever we hired to replace her would then get that PERS. So I don't know that it's really, she'd get the PERS she's getting for retiring, plus the new person, now we would be paying into PERS for them. So I don't know if we really are paying more money by
PERS
having her
pays out.
continue or not.
Mike?
I don't think we are.
No, I don't believe we are either.
So we're gonna, I think Mike's gonna answer.
So actually, you're both right in the sense that it's almost a status quo as far as costs. The 6% pickup, though, wouldn't be paid anymore because the superintendent would be in a retired status. So if you really want to look at any kind of cost savings, it would definitely be at the 6%.
Okay, okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mike.
And so, I want to clarify, that's for any one of our retirees.
Yes.
That same applies. And this provision was put into effect by the legislature in order that the PERS we did pay went to the unfunded liability.
That's correct. It goes into, and yes, it's to help pay down the normal cost of any employee.
So basically, any retiree we rehire basically saves us 6% of their salary.
At a minimum, we can get in and do a little more cost analysis, but that is a true statement.
General
Yep.
statement, yeah.
And just one more comment for the people who are listening. Currently, before Senate Bill 1049, our employees could retire and get rehired as long as they only worked 1,039 hours, which was essentially half a school year. And so for years, we have had our teachers, our specialists, who we want to keep working. We have rehired them when they have formally retired. We just haven't had to pay the PERS amount on that 1,039 hours. The legislature changed that to allow for this 4-year window, 2020 to 2024, that if an employee wants to retire and get rehired, they can do that so long as the superintendent, or in the superintendent's case, the board, decides that's a good idea. And we pay their salary, and they get their PERS benefits minus the amount that Mr. Wolf was talking about. And so this is what's going to happen in school districts all over the state. And we're trying to understand how to make this work in a fair and uniformly applied way. And you're getting a preview of how that might work with the superintendent, because you'd have to change her contract to allow her to do this, but she's already lined up policies to let all other employee groups do this for the first 1039 hours, in other words, in the first year, in 2020, and to be potentially rehired that second year in 2020, 2021. So we're going to have lots of folks who are going to ask us to do this with this employment policy.
Can I ask?
Katya?
I wanted to ask a simple question. If you open this up for the entire school, and let's say there's this X number of people who are going to be retiring, we are going to rehire them as full-time employees. The PERS will not go to them, but it'll go towards the pool. What would it do to new graduates, new teachers, or new staff who want to apply for a job in Salem-Keizer School District, when part of our focus is on equity and trying to bring some little bit of diversity and create thing? It's a question I want to ask. I am assuming that we don't have too many people in the educational pool, so that may be one possible answer, but approximately what percentage of people will be coming back and working full-time past retirement, which will hold up new young teachers who are coming into the field? And just
So I don't have exact answers, but what I will tell you is that prior to 2008, when we had a really robust pool of teacher candidates, we likely wouldn't be considering this sort of a policy. being in a teacher shortage, we don't have the candidate pool. And especially in the hard-to-fill positions, so speech and language pathologists, nurses, school counselors, elementary PE is hard to fill right now. So we have a lot of unfilled positions as it is. So as we're growing the pool of applicants in our teacher prep programs again, because we're not in cutting mode across the state, I think this is a decent bridge strategy for keeping quality educators in the classroom.
I'm also thinking in terms of bringing diverse groups of teachers, diversity
Yeah.
in teachers, so that this will be like a stopgap. And will the school have the ability to, say, okay, we're going to rehire X percentage, or we have to, it's a mandatory that we have to offer it to every retiree?
No, I think the process is we have to have a fair and equitable system of rehiring that's open to any candidate that's interested in this based on some reapplication standards that is non-discriminatory. So we can't choose this over that.
I think we need to remember that for the other employees, this is all under the authority of Christie, and it's already been implemented. Our decision today is about her contract. That's where our authority lies, not hers, or not the other employees.
Could I go back and make a statement or a comment about Director Kylo's look? And I think, Paul, you're right. It confuses the attempt in here was to, I could just say thank you, that you were right. Did you hear me say that? Thank you, Christy.
You were right, Paul.
How
Thank
rare
you,
is
Paul.
that?
No, it wasn't rare. I just wanted to acknowledge it. But, yeah, thank you. I think the attempt was to clearly reflect that this law expires in 2024. But I didn't know that. Yeah, the law expires in 2024, and it confused it with the contract. So how about if we ask Paul to take another little stab at this, just because that was the intent, was to,
Our
you knew that.
discussions had been that. That's
Yeah.
why I was confused when I read that.
Yeah. So,
It's not hard to confuse me.
Well, we can either change subparagraph C, or we could limit this to 2020 and 2021. And the way this would work is, if in 2020, which is in
it's like it's
what,
tomorrow.
a month and a half, if the superintendent says, I want to retire now, then you would rehire her for the remainder of this school year and 2021. So the 2020, 2021 school, that's what you'd be agreeing to. Now, in March, or whenever you make the evaluation decision and you have a conversation as a board about, do we offer to extend the contract? And you have that conversation with the superintendent, and the decision is made, yes, let's do that, then we'll be changing the dates from 21 to 22, and we'll be talking about whether to do that in 2023. So anyway, that's how it will roll out.
It makes more sense to me. What do you guys think?
I'm confused. Not hard. Paul, so what you're saying is if she retired mid-year, then she has a contract through the following year. Now, under the QAM, for other employees, that's not correct, so that's a difference. Because under the QAM, if someone retires mid-year, the superintendent has to make the decision, so that would transfer to the board whether to keep her the extra year or not. Is that correct?
So
That's not what I heard you say, that's my problem.
So under the QAM policy, for working the half year, if any employee says, I want to retire January 1, 2020, they will get to work that extra semester, essentially, so long as they're in good standing and they don't have a disciplinary issue pending or things like that. That would apply to everybody. The decision whether to rehire for the following school year would be a district question for the superintendent, and it would be a question for the board.
Right.
And so you would be making that decision on this contract amendment. You would be agreeing that if she retires, you'd let her work the remainder of this year, and you'd let her work essentially the third year of her contract. Because she's only got one more year left.
Which is different than what any other employee under the QAM gets.
But is it different because
No, it's
they
not
have a
different
different
at all.
contract?
It is different.
That,
It is
it's not different. The
is
difference
different.
is who makes the decision on whether an employee works the second year.
But what you're saying is that if we agree to this, then we are keeping her the year after. Where under the QAM, that is not the case.
Don't we have to
That is
give her
not
a
an
year?
automatic, it is not an automatic rehire.
Paul, don't we have to give her a year, almost like a year notice
But
kind of
not
thing?
not
or
if she
something?
retires midway.
No, she's simply asking you as a board, if she retires under Senate Bill 1049, will you give her the third year of her contract? You get to make that decision. If another employee says, I want to work next year, I'm retiring mid-year, I want to work next year too, the superintendent gets to decide yes or no. So it's the same decision-making, it's just a different decision-making body who makes the decision about next year.
And is that because their contract terms are different?
Well, it's.
The law isn't.
Is what, why?
Well, so I just feel like this has gotten really complicated because we came into this, I really felt secured in what we were doing. And I think what's thrown me off is the extra years that are on here because we never talked about that. And I understand why you would do that for the ease of trying to amend things going forward. For me, I was comfortable with what I understood we were going to be discussing, which is amending her current contract because we all want, well, I want her to stay as a superintendent in the event that she retires and honor the contract she's currently under. When I talked to the superintendent and you at one point about other employees of the district and their contracts, the only thing that would be different on the terms of those, like the length, longevity, was based on the contract they were serving under and her allowing that option for them to continue to serve that contract out, right?
The QAM gives any employee who wants to work a second year the right to ask.
Correct.
And the district gets to decide, does that make sense for us or not?
Correct.
Where
So
they automatically finish
for
that
the
year.
2021 school year.
Okay.
So-
I misunderstood that part.
So everyone's contract is a little bit different in this regard because, I mean, take a supervisor in the transportation department. They're essentially working on a one-year contract. So when they ask the district, I want to retire in a month and a half, and I'd like to work the following school year too. They don't have a contract for the following school year. We haven't given it to them yet. So they're going to be relying upon us saying, yes, we need you to work next year, and we will give you a contract, assurance of a contract next year. If a bus driver says, I want to retire because I can earn more money drawing on PERS and continuing to work, and I want to work next year as a bus driver, we want to say, sign us up immediately for that proposition.
Especially
But
bus
they're
drivers.
they're not on a three-year contract. So we treat each employee group in a way that gives us the flexibility to say yes or no. And this is what we're trying to do for you with all assistant superintendents and superintendents, to give you the flexibility to say, we want to keep you for next year, so if you retire, we will rehire you next year. No promises after that. We'll talk about that later. That's how I've analyzed it.
Always.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
So I don't see where it reduces our control. We always maintain the option of saying, yes, for 23-24, we would intend to further this on these grounds. But each year, we do have that option after her written contract. I don't see a problem with it. But Director Kylo?
I hear you. I do have a problem with it.
So what would satisfy your problem?
Well, obviously, the clarification that Paul just made helps, that she would only be allowed to work out the rest of her contract. Whether she retires, we allow her to go that takes care of it, but there's no promise beyond that. Because that would require more negotiation, and I'm also concerned about what benefits transfer over with her. Because she has, I mean, her sick leave obviously goes away, because that's part of the retirement. I understand personal leave could still accrue. I understand her 6 weeks of paid vacation or whatever it is could still accrue. There's all the professional development pieces, there's the TSA, there are all the other pieces. Do those all stay in place throughout her year, or the extra year, or do those also sunset in some way? And I don't believe that is outlined in what I'm reading in those amendments. So I guess I would like that clarified. And that doesn't have to be tonight, but it could, I need it before we vote in December.
You need a clarification of what contract terms?
Correct.
Would apply?
Correct. Correct.
I believe
Don't
all
for-
would apply.
Well, that's what I thought you were going to say, so that becomes a
Don't
question.
forget that we save the 6% pickup every year that she decides to stay, that we accept her.
I also,
And I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think we're getting the good end of those. Most of those things you mentioned won't match up or won't accumulate to 6%.
I believe if you do the math, they will.
It needs to be clear.
I have nothing wrong with clarifying it, as long as it gives us the option each year after the existing contract is completed. And I think this does, if we fix it the way Paul wants. And maybe the next board meeting we have, Paul, you can help, and maybe we can figure out exactly what those terms are and what amount of money that does have.
I see Paul
I'm
nodding
not
his
sure,
head
I'm
a
not sure
little
which
bit.
Paul you're referring to.
I think it's not Paul Kylo.
Like I say, which
Both
one
of
are
you nod your
referring to?
heads. Both of you nod your heads.
Paul or Chuck, it doesn't matter, it's like, okay.
So if I'm understanding, so this
complained
law
when I called you
sunsets in
Chuck.
2024?
Yes.
So if she retires, she's only going to work for us part-time after 2024? That's the law?
We shall have the option to
All right.
present them.
Satya, did you have another question?
You know, the way I read it, it's very clear that this is the maximum extent of the provision, and it still is subjected to the terms of the contract, whether it's 1 year or 3 years. That's how I read it. It does, because, and then whatever is in the contract is what we have to honor, salary, benefit, this, that. So, because, you know, this is also really important, because we've got rest of the employees, we have to come up with similar boilerplate thing.
No,
But
we
let me,
don't.
let me finish this.
But we don't.
Yeah, but it's, so what I'm really trying to say is, one way or other, do we have to specify all those details in this amendment, or could it be worded in such a way that, you know, rehiring will be based on whatever is the salary benefits, et cetera, that is highlighted in the hiring contract?
Well, this board needs to have language that you're all comfortable with. You know, I'm representing the board on this, I'm not representing the superintendent, so I need to write something that you all like and can support and understand.
So why don't the Pauls work on this a little bit and
Hey, Chuck down there.
clarify it so that we can all be really clear on what we're agreeing to. Jesse?
Happy to do it.
I just wanted to say that I agree with Paul that the clarification, and I want to thank Paul actually for bringing that up, just because once you.
Which one of us?
Chuck Paul.
Chuck.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're talking about me.
And just, I mean, I appreciate the clarification. I mean, that's a really good point, and I think it could be more clear, so.
I'm going to stab you with this.
Okay, so the Pauls have it. They're going to go back to the drawing board, make a few modifications, and bring it back to the board.
I mean, when you aren't in charge of that, you don't think of that change.
Now it's time for reports. Christy.
I would like to say it's awesome to get to always negotiate your contract in public. I just want to put that on the record tonight. Because lots of people are in the audience are thinking, wow, I wish I could sit where she's sitting right now and negotiate her contract in public. Goodness.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So this next executive limitation is on staff evaluations, and there has not been substantive changes, I can't even speak at this point, to Legends or any of our evaluation procedures. One of the things we worked on was we tried to find a better system of evaluation for our teachers, and the one we have meets the legal components, and so it's hard to make changes that really do much else because of the very strict legal requirements about. So we continue to look at that. We're going to continue to work on it. We're kind of tracking there maybe some changes for administrators coming about in the standards. And right now, TSPC has adopted the professional standards for educational leaders, so it's part of licensing. If those need to come into an evaluation system at some point, we're kind of watching, should we change some standards with the teacher evaluation. As a reminder, it does meet the legal requirements, and we have a standout system that is recognized in the state. One thing we've added as just a technology, and it's at the end of the report, is that we now have the ability for our assistant superintendents to have greater access within the system to do better monitoring of the evaluations. So that's been a update to our system that the software is now allowing us to do. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions? I don't see any. Next report.
All right, Mike, could you do the community bond oversight report, please? Thank you.
Not going to work? Oh, maybe it is. Okay.
We got to work on that, Mike.
We'll put a work order in already on this. Good evening, Chair Hine, Superintendent Perry, and members of the board. So just a quick update. CBOC met on October 29th and basically took a tour of North Campus again. That was where we held the previous meeting, and so really the members got to see a lot of progress on the construction. And so if you haven't driven past North recently, you should, because you'll be amazed at the progress. Remember, North started about 3 months earlier than McNary, so you'll see a lot of vertical walls at the North site. And so it was really nice to be able to take a look at all of the progress and the new commons, the satellite kitchen, the new CTE spaces, the walls are all up, and the roof is being put in place. And the new classroom wings and gymnasium foundations and poured walls are going up. So we're also able to come back into the building and take a look at the new secured foyer entrance at North, and a couple of science rooms. One was a renovated science room, and the other one was a brand new science room. So that was the North tour. Then we got into the discussion of the project status reports. Everything is moving forward as we had planned as far as schedule. There was a change in the contracting approach at South. It was originally scheduled to be a CMGC contract, And we have really tight provisions in those contracts, and we ran into a snag with negotiations, and so we pulled the plug on that. And we're actually going out with 4 separate design bid build, traditional bid packages for South. So we gave ourselves the flexibility with enough time in the schedule to be able to make that decision. So we talked about that with CBOC as well. An early start to Miller, as you can see, will now begin in the spring of 20 instead of the summer. So when we can accelerate, we do that for a number of reasons, not the least of which is better pricing. We also had about $7 million more in earnings, so the program has brought in close to over $15 million in earnings, which helps with unallocated contingencies. And there was an allocation of $10 million from the program contingency to cover program management costs. This was primarily in response to the complexities of the project. The 2018 project mix is entirely different than the 2008 project mix and really requires a lot more intense oversight, and that was part of that conversation. The total approved bond program is now close to $680 million from the base of 620. And there is approximately $55 million left in unallocated program contingencies, which is about 11% of the total approved construction value of the program. So those are some quick stats on the bond program.
Any questions for Mike? Sharon?
Just one quick, at South, so switching from CMGC to design build to two distinctive functions, what's the continuity between the design and the build? Did we lose any of that from CMGC?
No, and actually it's design bid build, not design build, which is totally different, yeah, and pretty risky proposition. We're not heading in that direction. Yeah, no, this is going back to the traditional design bid build packages, hard bid, and so it was really just a change in contracting methodology. But our A&E firm there's more design that goes into it to finish the contracting documents as opposed to with the CMGC, but we're still on schedule.
Satya?
I have a question. So you have a little bit of contingency fund left. If for some reason some of the project get delayed, it goes over what we have budgeted, do we have that contingency fund or any way to take care of that? Or if there is like in Portland School, they discovered that some of the school building after it was built had some challenges?
Right. Yeah, and actually having 11% at this point in reserves is a really solid position financially for the program. That wasn't the case north of us. And so we also have seen the construction costs stabilize and start to plateau with projections for next year of a slight decrease, closer to the 6% annual escalation that we used to build the program. So there was a period, their very first 12 to 14 months, where the escalation was projected closer to 7%, but now it's stabilized and heading back down to 6%. So there are lots of things that can happen between now and when we finish any project that I couldn't even begin to predict. But at least at this point, with $55 million in unallocated contingencies, about 11% of the total construction volume, we're in better shape than a lot of districts at this point.
Any more questions for Mike? Nope. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Student investment account?
All right, this report is related to our task force work. The task force has met 5 times between September and October. Director Kylo has been to 2 or 3, and Director Bethel has been to at least 1. And we're now entering the stakeholder engagement, the community engagement phase of this. And Alice has emailed you the dates for all those. Next week is every night, at least one thing and multiple things. So we are requesting no more than 3 at any one meeting. And if there is 3, we may ask you to pull off and go to a different meeting so that we have board representation across multiple meetings. So in this second paragraph on the back of this report, it does identify some of the groups we're going to talk to. We have already reached out to our Judson, one of our groups at Judson Middle School, our North Salem High School Latino group already. So we're beginning to get that feedback in. Today we had our facilitator training. So we're doing about a 45-minute training of facilitators and note takers for those events so that they're ready to go. And then we also have a district-wide survey that will go on our website. We wanted to launch the engagement sessions first, but then that community-wide survey will go up after that. I think that's it for the report, other than, because they're in the audience, thanks to the coalition who is going to do one of the community meetings on our behalf. So that will be great. And Yadira, you might not know this yet, is offered to do the Spanish welcome video with me so that it's fully in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking parents. So Yadira's been great. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just real quick. So is the coalition represented on the committee?
Yeah, Yadira from the coalition is on the committee.
Okay.
And so, yes, they are.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. Moving on to information. Please note board and budget committee meeting schedule. There's been an addition of a special board meeting, which is just going to be a work session on December 17th. Other than that, it's the same as it's been for a while. Moving on to the agenda modification, item 10B, which is the Voting Rights Committee. And I call it Voting Rights because that's the title of the legislation that's related to this. So a month or two ago, I mentioned at the end of a board meeting that I wanted to look and evaluate how we elect directors in our district. We are preparing to start that process now. We will be inviting members of the public to apply, and we will select people with a goal of having the most diverse committee possible. The final list of participants will then be brought before the entire school board for final approval. Any recommendations of the committee will also be subject to final board approval. Please be on the lookout for additional information that will be coming regarding meeting dates and the application process. And so those of you who did not make it on the budget committee, I hope that you will consider applying for this committee. Sean?
Please clarify what legislation you're referring to? What is this
I
committee
don't
gonna
know
do?
the bill number. It was some legislation that passed last year regarding local bodies like school districts.
3031.
I'm not sure if it was 3031.
But what is the purpose of the committee?
So if a particular class, a minority class, I believe, I haven't read the bill myself, okay, I just have heard about it, did not feel like they were running elections fairly or was stacked, something was stacked against that particular group, they could file suit against a district to change how they vote, how they do their elections. Huh?
Yeah, it's how the zones are established and how the
Right.
elections.
So in case you don't know, currently we have 7 zones, but voting happens at large. Not all districts work that way. It could be totally different. And so what I want the committee to do is take a look at what we do, what other districts do, and talk about, should we be making some changes? And then should we make changes even to the lines of our zones? So there's lots of different ways. There'll be 2 board members that'll be participating in this, and I have a different person who's going to be the facilitator. And again, I hope you will all consider applying because I want a very diverse group of people, also from different parts of town as well. But we don't want a huge group. It's not going to be like the student investment account and act. It's going to be like 10 people or less because you're going to be needing to, work as a team. If we have too many people, it just makes it harder to get things done. Any more questions? Okay, so it's time for public comment on non-agenda items.
Madam Chair, can I ask a clarifying question about the previous one? You talked about
Yes.
that voting thing. Is it okay?
Sure.
This particular process, when do you plan this will start?
We are hoping to have the applications into us by December 3rd, but I just don't want to put that date out there because we're putting things together right now. There will be hopefully a press release very soon once we have some dates solidified. So those people that decide to apply, they're going to know when the meetings are ahead of time, you know, so you can make sure that you're actually able to attend. Okay? Okay. So now it's time for non-agenda items. We will now hear public comment. This section of public comment is for addressing topics not related to the agenda. Please state your name, city of residence, and the topic you are addressing for the record. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and the timer will beep when your time has expired. Again, we want to hear from you, but we ask that you please respect the time limit and speak with courtesy in consideration of the board and audience. And the first person is Sarah Quinlan.
See if this will work for me.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Okay, my name is Sarah Quinlan, and I live in Keizer, and I came to talk about internet safety. My husband and I have discovered a problem with district policies regarding the SK student accounts that I've discovered most people aren't aware of, and we've been kind of trying to get the problem solved, but I've found that maybe I need some more help in pestering the technology department to get it solved a little faster. My husband and I purchased a Chromebook for our daughter. She's a freshman. And we set up Google Family parental controls and made it so she can only log in from her personal account. And it was all great, ready to go. And she logged in and then couldn't access any of her Google Classroom and Salem-Keizer things and couldn't log into certain websites she uses for school because she uses Google Login for those and couldn't log in. So we added her Salem-Keizer account to the Chromebook for her to be able to log in under her school email. And she logged in, and then we weren't able to do any parental controls or monitoring at all, which we could probably be okay with a little bit if we could then take the Chromebook and open it up and like see what she was doing online. But currently the settings are set up to where students can delete their browser history. So it really doesn't do us any good to be able to open it up and look at it, and we can't, remotely monitor it. And it's really a big safety issue. I mean, nowadays with the rise in suicide rates and self-harm and bullying and like all of these things, different parents have different levels of what they want to do to monitor their kids, and that's totally okay. But as a parent not having the option to do anything, we want to see if our daughter's Googling, how to throw up quietly to hide her bulimia, or places to commit suicide in Salem, or, other things that are bad, or even just more subtle things. Like I see what kind of videos she's watching on YouTube, and if I suddenly see an increase or big change and she's suddenly watching things that are kind of like dark or depressing, that would cause me to say, hey, you were listening to happy music and now you're not, what's going on with this? And just not being able to realistically open that up and look and see what's going on. And there are other services available for monitoring. There is a service out there that has a parent portal to where parents can get alerts if there are signs of self-harm or bullying. And it would just be nice to get the ball rolling on some improvement in this area. So,
thank you very much. Casey Occupe?
I just came because I heard that it's Casey Okupi, Salem, Oregon.
Sorry
I
about that.
What?
Sorry about that, pronouncing your name wrong.
Oh, no problem. I was just stating like I was supposed to. Anyway, I heard that this group, Moms Demand Action, was going to be here, so I wanted to show up to make sure that that I voiced that I don't want any like radicalized fringe groups or anything with political agendas and things near my kids. You know what I mean? Like that's a very outspoken anti-gun group, and you know, like I'm a responsible gun owner, and my kids have gone through like hunter safety courses and things like that. So I don't want any of those messages from groups like that going near my kids through the school system. So that was about it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that is it tonight for public comment. Start with board activity reports. Paul Kylo.
Nothing to report.
Danielle.
I think he's been places, he doesn't want to talk about it. So I did have the opportunity to pop into an SIA task force. Paul's the board representative for that, but I really wanted to see what it looked like in the space and who was there and the questions they were asking, and it was exceptionally informative. The questions that the task force members are asking are empowering and insightful. They're emotional, and I think they're really challenging to the district. Superintendent Perry, I think you did an excellent job picking the folks that you put on that task force. Thank you for spending the time doing that. I plan to be and will be at the McNary community engagement opportunity, and I hope everybody in my community shows up and has a voice. I know there's a limited amount of time, but I really hope that people have an opportunity to share what's important to them and to their children. It's not just as taxpayers, but as parents and community people. And then I also attended the CBOC meeting at North. Thank you, Mr. Wolf, for helping me through that. I wore high heels to a construction site, and it was adventurous, and I appreciate your chivalry. It worked out. It was freezing cold, and I have to say, you guys hired some pretty great architects. The amount of things that they have been able to do just to that building, its age, and the transformation already is awesome. The security entry that they have put in place makes me very happy and secure as a parent to know that there is going to be multiple point contacts before anybody can get into our schools to access our students. But also, it gives you easy access to know where you're supposed to go when you have never been in the building before. So thank you for all of your work on that, and I'm excited to see it completed, and I can't wait to see the Sky Bridge.
Sky bridge is the wrong term.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whatever. It's a bridge in the sky. What do you call it?
Floating hallway? What's it called?
Bridge above the school.
Yeah, it connects to two sections of the building. It's elevated and it's covered.
Okay, well, it's not a bridge. It's in the sky. A causeway.
I did want to point out, too, you did a great job, Danielle. Those high heels she did in thick, deep gravel. I don't know how she did it. Well, I can't do high heels like that anyway, but I don't know how she did it. And second, what you said about the security, the way that's set up now, it's going to make our kids so much safer. And it's still easy. It's easier for parents to know where to go and what to do. It's going to be wonderful, and I can't wait till it's done. Jesse?
Ready?
Oh, he's got a long pad of paper there.
I got like a novel. Alrighty, so I just wanted to. I would just like to clarify something that I said earlier when we were talking about the Parents' Rights Proclamation. Apparently, I'm not very good at wording things, so that's a thing. I just wanted to clarify. I believe that I stated that I couldn't vote for the Parent Proclamation because I did not agree with their views, the group's views on LGBTQ rights. I wanted to clarify and say that it was an organization or a group that promotes that they are anti-LGBTQ, not for it. And that the first draft of this that I saw, at least, was one that was written by them, and they asked us to vote on it. And so that is the reason why I'm against that. I believe that all people should be able to love whoever they want to love, And if I want to represent our students and stand up for what I believe to be right, I can't be trying to please groups that would make our students feel marginalized. And I wouldn't want the perception of that, our students to see something like that, because I would feel that way if I saw people vote on something like that. And I'm not trying to diminish anybody voting on it, because some of you may not have known. And then also, the proclamation itself was awesome, right? It's just that it was the people who were promoting it and asking us to do it. I question their motives, and I question whether or not they would bring other things later that they would feel like they could pressure us to vote on. And so I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, just for clarification, though, the proclamation we did tonight was actually written by Christy and myself, and is totally separate. So
So
do not let that confuse you.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. No, this one is separate, but the initial one I saw makes me question the reason that we're voting on it right now as opposed to any other month at any other time. Because the first one I saw was that, and they were the ones pushing us for us to do it, so that's that. Again, I want to say that I love our parents to death. I want our students and our parents to feel safe and welcome, because that's something that we agreed to. And I also want our LGBTQ students to feel safe and welcome. And I just felt like if I voted yes on that, I would be compromising that. So anyways, I just didn't like the first draft, and I didn't like the group, and I just want to protect our students. So basically what I'm saying is, I'm a crummy politician, but the good news is I like our students, and I feel the need to protect our marginalized students. So that's that. Now on to the real deal. I was at the Native American celebration that was hosted at Willamette University on Friday, I believe it was. But it was fantastic. So apparently there's a Native American rapper named Superman, and he was great. All the kids were having a blast. We had a lot of our Salem-Keizer students who were Native American and Alaska Native there. And it was fun. There was really good food. It was a riot. You all should have been there. Also, I want to say that I plan to go to these meetings about the community bond, the Student Investment Account Task Force. There's a lot of acronyms in education. And then also, we had a really good tour of the transportation facilities this last month. Put on, like Michael Shields was showing us around, a great guy and a great team. So I just want to say thank you to all of our transportation staff. I mean, we have a lot of needs in regards to transportation, and we really ask a lot of them. And so I just wanted to say thank you to them. And it was really educational for me to be able to see the needs that our transportation facilities have, and to be able to see what they do every day. In fact, fun fact, our school buses, they drive how many times around the earth? Do you remember, Mike?
No, it's
too many.
Changed every time you Google it, remember?
That's a good point. Yeah. But long story short, they drive a lot. So that's all I have to say.
Well, I'm for brevity, so I did several things this last time, but I'm not going to go into what we ate, what we did, so I'll pass that one.
That's fair. That's fair.
We had good food, too. So I did go to an AVID statewide performance at McNary, spent a full day there, thoroughly enjoyed it, and if you aren't familiar with AVID, it does really help a particular kind of student that's struggling in our schools. And you might want to think about that. There's another one coming up at Sprague, I believe is the next one. I don't have a date, but hang on and watch, and it will come along soon, most likely after Christmas. But it is a good program, and I was happy with it. That's it.
So I normally wouldn't share this because this is specific to South High School, but I attended the South Foundation event, which is always perplexing to me that we have to do fundraising in the community to pay for things in the classroom. To pay for things in the classroom, but we do. And the community comes out in support. But what I wanted to share was our new choir teacher shared some comments made by students. So he asked, he was making a pitch to support choir at South, but he asked his students to write a love letter to choir. And so I just wanted to read a couple of these because they're very insightful into what it means, what our choir programs mean at South and across the district. So just real quick. Dear choir, thank you for being my rock, my getaway, my safe place. Thank you for letting me express feelings that I can't put into words or share with people. Thank you for helping me know myself and my emotions better and then channeling them into art. Thank you for helping me build healthy relationships with people and for bringing people together. I love you. Dear choir, thank you for helping me get out of 6th grade PE. And the last one, dear choir, we've had quite a long relationship, going on 7 years. Wow. We've had our ups and our downs, but because of you, I am who I am. I want to thank you for teaching me discipline, confidence, and musicianship. You've given me opportunities I couldn't get anywhere else, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. You make me smile every day. Thanks for being in a long-term, committed relationship with me. You've changed my life. I love you, choir.
Satya?
Thank you. I want to say thank you, Superintendent Perry, for taking me on a tour to Sprague and Sumter Elementary School. In Sumter Elementary School, I saw what all the elements of a good leadership should look like. There is a very clear vision, passion by the principal, Prats, and how the entire organization was so aligned. The key results matched what she wanted to achieve, and you could see it across board, all the way to students. And there were some students who needed some extra help, and they created such a beautiful ambience with what limited facility they have, the way they have engaged the community. And it was just an amazing team. And I was so happy to see how we have a very good benchmark amongst us, and that if we can find a way to scale it up and get the entire district aligned that way, we're going to have a great program. The second thing I want to say is thank you for your leadership, because that you allowed them to nurture that kind of thing. So I think that is really speaking highly of you to have created that space to nurture that kind of experience, so that is very nice. And the beautiful way in which the leadership is being built, and practically everybody said the same thing. I mean, to me, that speaks very highly of how your leadership works. And thank you for coming to our South Asian community, the Diwali celebration. We saw so many children and families, and you got to experience the spicy food. I have to speak about food, and you have to drink water in your car.
Why didn't you bring any tonight?
Well, so thank you very much for coming to that program. It means a lot. And I believe at some stage, if our board can go and join and participate in such community cultural events, it will really translate into some of the vision that you have for our school system. So thank you.
Thank you. Christy?
All right, so I'll just wrap up with a couple comments. And I will say, it's just because I couldn't find the water line at the event, and it was Indian food that was very spicy. So by the time I got to my car, I was really thankful that I have multiple water bottles that I'd not finished in my car.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it was awesome food, but water would have helped, and I didn't find it. Anyway, it was a fabulous event, and the choreography of the event and the highlight of the children in the event. I watched this group of children sitting in front of me who were so excited about their turn to perform. And they were mesmerized by every other dancer, singer, but still attending to when it was their turn. And they had to wait about an hour for their turn and sat on the floor mesmerized before they got up to dance. And they were incredible when they got up there. Stole the show. This week is Crystal Apples. You have a couple tickets, at least one at your table. If you can be there, it's the highlight of the year for all of our educators that we're highlighting as honorees. So it'll be another great night. And then one of our focus groups that we've done already related to the student investment account task force work was with some of our LGBTQ kids. And a couple things they said that made me think, oh, it's such a simple thing. But they talked about the symbolism of when you pass a resolution, of when we change our logo on the website, of how impactful it is for them to see a sticker on the door of a teacher's classroom that says they're safe there, and how impactful it is when they see words that all students are welcome. And we think sometimes the symbolic things we do, we don't know their impact, and this group of kids clearly stated their impact of little things that we can do that do not cost money, just send a message of welcoming. So that was a really powerful lesson from some of our kids who are incredibly bright and talented and told us exactly what made their world safer and better for them. So to our Judson group, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing so open-heartedly to our assistant superintendents. So with that, I think that's all for me.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We are adjourned.